Black Panther Forever. Welcome to another episode of the Bandwagon Fan. This is the show where we talk about all things pop culture. I'm AJ.
And I'm Josh.
And this week we are reviewing the latest in the onslaught of Marvel movies, Black Panther Forever.
Here we are.
Wakanda Forever, I should say. Yeah, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, aka Black Panther 2. I don't think they included the 2 in the tagline. That was interesting, but
yeah. Actually, yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
It's different. And I don't know. I saw somebody on Twitter say it should have been Black Panther, Black Woman Forever.
Black women, yeah, I can see it. It's a very female-driven film. Let's just jump 2 feet into it. There's no need to set up. Most people have probably seen a Marvel movie at this point. Most people have more than likely seen the first Black Panther, and as we know, Chadwick Boseman passed away, I believe, last year. With a very severe cancer, very, very difficult to treat cancer. And we found out that he had known about it for some time and really just kind of dealt with it. What were your thoughts when you found out that he had passed away due to this illness?
It was beyond sad. I'm not like a lot of people where like when a celebrity dies, I'm like super sad about it because I don't know these people. Mm-hmm. There are times where it's like, okay, I connected with this person's work and like there's that connection. And to be honest, like I haven't seen a lot of his films, and since his passing, like I still haven't watched them just because it's like, man, like for me, like it's hard because it's like this guy died like relatively young, and
yeah,
it was wild that he was dying and was continuing to make films, and he, would meet with children who were also battling cancer, and all while, he
didn't say anything. He never didn't come out and say, "Hey, I'm sick, I'm dying." And it was really a shock when we found out he passed away. I think selfishly, as Marvel fans, it was frustrating because he played Black Panther so well. Mm-hmm. He wasn't, Tony Stark, this super arrogant, super charismatic person. He wasn't Thor, this hulking, charming person, right? He was a reserved but thoughtful person, and it reflected this idea of him being a king. I felt like he played that role with gravity, and I think that's really the biggest I guess you can say theme that plays throughout this film, right? I think the first movie, for those who may not have watched it, first of all, go watch Black Panther, the first one. It's overall a pretty solid film. And the first movie really deals with this idea of how are you going to lead, right? That's I can relate to that as I've recently been promoted, and now I'm in a position in my life where I have to lead other people. And it's very different being on the other side of leadership, right? It's very easy to be a follower. It's not easy to be a leader. And I think the first film presented that perspective from somebody who has always been prepared to be a leader. You know what I mean? He's lived his whole life to be prepared to be a leader. And then in this film, no one's prepared. No one is prepared to be a leader, right? Yeah. It's really different, and I think that is very evident when the movie first starts. This film starts off with the funeral passing of T'Challa in the film, and I think that Ryan Coogler and Disney did a really good job of not making it feel hokey, like one of the things that like Fast and Furious did, that when I can't remember the actor's name now, but when the actor that played Brian passed away, they just left it open so his character was like still alive. I thought that was weird. I thought that was a very bizarre thing to do. The character passed away, and I felt like Disney handled it very touchingly, and it made me sad. I cried in the theater, when I'm watching the funeral,
I did too. And like the way the film starts, when they did the title sequence, like the Marvel title sequence,
Yeah.
it was silent. And
Silent.
it was all Chadwick. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Usually they do like a montage of Marvel characters, and it was all him. It was silent, and then it's that black screen, and you hear Shuri praying to their god, the Panther goddess.
Bass.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just right away there's like this sense of like urgency and like fear and heaviness. And then yeah, like when he does pass, like yeah, I cried. And then the funeral, like the production team, they incorporated different aspects of like death, mourning and celebrations seen throughout Africa. I didn't catch this at first, but like because I did see the film twice. There's different tribes present in the streets. They're like carrying his casket through the streets, and they're all dancing, wearing white. And there's different tribes present, and each tribe like is wearing clothing that in real life reflects those people. It was just really interesting to see like how they mourned, and how it's like half celebration, half mourning, where the people are dancing and celebrating that he's gone to join the ancestors, but there's also like real sadness. And like Angela Bassett and is it Letitia Wright?
Letitia, I think it's
Letitia Wright. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like those tears, like those are real tears.
Those
like
are real tears. Yeah,
it's not acting, and so it like pulls you in. And yeah, I cried at that part. Like it was so moving and so sad, but also kind of liberating.
It wasn't acting,
right? But like it was like it was liberating because like I feel like in the U.S. specifically, we don't like have like a mourning ritual. Like people like they like go to a funeral, like stiff upper lip, try not to cry.
Actually,
and then
I'm
they're
gonna
like
take that back
a month later.
I'm gonna take it back because I think Americans, I think, and you know what, maybe I shouldn't say the way I was gonna say it. Maybe I'll say it like this: as a Haitian American, I think Haitian Americans and Black Americans, they do grieve differently.
Yeah,
at least from what I know, and it's a lot of emotion, but then that's a lot of celebration. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, but it's also like there's a healthiness to it because like I'm half white, so like I've seen like that side of like what funerals are like, and it's not particularly, in my opinion, the healthiest way to do stuff. Whereas like in Uganda, like I've been to Uganda a few times, like when they do funerals, like they are bawling their eyes out.
Yeah.
But then after the funeral is all said and done,
it's like celebration,
they can move on. Like they've let out that emotion. Whereas a lot of people are like, they hold it in, and like they can hold it in for years.
Yeah.
This movie is about grief, like about personal loss, about cultural loss, about historical loss, and like how you deal with that. And so right off the bat, you see a healthy way of how to deal with loss and grief. It quickly goes downhill as the movie progresses, but like you start out seeing like a good way to do it, which it was so powerful. And it's a blueprint for Marvel films. Like it doesn't need to be joke, punch, joke.
It doesn't need to be joke. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But the first act of this movie essentially takes place a year after the passing of T'Challa in the movie, and Shuri is. Let's not beat around the bush. She hasn't mourned. She hasn't mourned the passing. I think everyone else, I don't want to say moved on, but they've had to move on, and she doesn't want to. And her mother really, Queen Ramonda, really can sense that. You know, the movie starts off in terms of a plot really simply. The rest of the world is, you know, I guess reflective of real life, trying to get a hold of vibranium. I think when you look at the macro from the perspective of a lot of the situations that have happened up until this point, that from a military perspective, it is frightening to have to rely on outside entities to save the world. And so you see that there have been already plots that the different world powers have made to try to get their hands on vibranium. And I think this is the I guess you can say like the outside plot that I think will play into many other Black Panther movies going forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about that is like it's not like it's not like North Korea or like some like quote unquote villainous country that's doing it. Like it's very like they don't point blank say it, but they very much are like, hey, France is trying to do this.
Not just France, the United States. You know what I mean?
The US,
as
later
they
on
would, but as they would in real life, that is a real thing, right? So, so we fast forward a little bit, and there is an oil rig where you find out that behind the back of the Wakandans, that the Americans are actively searching for vibranium. You know, up until this point, we are to believe that the only asteroid that had vibranium landed in Africa, where Wakanda is. But it appears that there is vibranium in the sea, in the Gulf of Mexico, I believe. And so, you know, this rig, this essentially vibranium rig, is built, and they are attacked by blue people off the you know, out of the water. And I thought there were some cool scenes in there. You know, the people, as we'll find out later, you know, they use siren songs, you know, to call out the people, which is an incredibly powerful force. You know what I mean?
Scary, man. It's very terrifying.
Very terrifying, especially when you're in
nothing you can do.
The middle of the ocean. Yeah, there's nothing you can really do. And so this is our introduction to I guess I don't know what you would call the is it Tanakh, the Tanakh people?
Yeah, they don't really say that explicitly, maybe like once or twice, but they're the people of Talokan.
Correct.
Which is, in the comics, is Atlantis.
Yes.
And they never drop the word Atlantis in this, even like,
correct,
even to be like, oh, it's like what we thought Atlantis was, which I think is mostly because DC kind of already capitalized on that.
Yeah. But which is fine. I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's more interesting this way, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is a lot more interesting that way. We get our first look at, you know, our Latin American, I guess, protagonist, technically, Namor. Or not him directly, but the army he leads.
Yeah.
And so we see their strength and what they can do. And Namor then actually confronts Ramona and Shuri in Wakanda, which was a big deal because no one has ever snuck into Wakanda before. He literally swam up through the ocean, and they don't know of his existence. And he presents them essentially with an ultimatum. He wants the mining to stop to protect his people. He wants the mining, the searching for vibranium to stop. And so he wants the scientists who built the machine, and essentially asks Ramonda, like, bring me the scientists. There'll be peace among your people and my people, but this is going to get done one way or another. What were your thoughts on this first act of the film so far?
I sympathize with them. Like, Ryan Coogler really did the same thing with Killmonger. You're like, this guy's right.
Yeah.
He might not go about it the best way, but he's right.
Yeah.
Namor is a god to his people. And like beyond being a leader, like, he is absolutely devoted to the protection of his city, of his people. Like, he views them as his children. Like, it's not like he's a king or like a president. Like, these are it's his family.
And that's a big distinction between who the world looked at T'Challa to be, right? Or even T'Challa was to his people, and what Namor is to his people, right? He's a father before he is a leader. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big distinction.
Yeah, and it makes you like, he's right. He's like, hey, like what right did you guys have to out us?
Right.
We have this incredible resource that the entire world is going to want to take, and they're already trying to take it from us. Like, you outed us, you exposed us, and you're going to fix this. Otherwise, I'm going to fix it for you.
Yeah.
And like, from a leadership perspective, like, I have to respect the fact that he sees the problem. He's taking direct ownership of solving it, but he's also giving people a chance to solve it for themselves.
Yeah.
Before he takes action.
Right.
And I was rooting for him the whole film, to be honest.
So, and at this point in the movie, to, I guess, juxtapose this, I guess you say that this dynamic, right? Where you have Namor, who is like, I'm revealing myself because I chose to. I am the protector. I am the whatever. And Shuri, at this point, she is having, I guess you can say, an existential crisis, right? She is not sure what she believes, who she believes, and why she even does what she's doing, right? And if you remember from the first Black Panther, Killmonger destroyed the flowers of the herb, so there is no longer an ability to create the flower that gives someone the power of the Black Panther. And I didn't even catch that in the beginning of the movie. The first time I watched it, the beginning of the movie, that's what she was trying to recreate. She was trying to recreate the flower from his DNA, couldn't do it fast enough. You know what I mean? So there's no Black Panther. And so she is like, what is all this for? And Ramonda's trying to tell her, she's like, look, Black Panther may be gone, your brother may be gone physically, but that doesn't mean he is gone from your life. And she's like, nah, that's crazy. If I think about him too long, she even explicitly says, like, I'm gonna want to burn the world along with it, right? And so we see a lot of rage, we see a lot of anger and frustration, and it makes sense. You know what I mean? When you lose a loved one, I think it's different when you feel like they've been taken from you. You know what I mean? And I think, like you said earlier, that's the grief that is a very prevalent theme in this movie, right? That how do we move on past that grief?
Yeah, like Shuri's way of moving on is through her anger. Like, I'm going to dominate, because her whole thing is science. She doesn't believe in the religion of Wakanda anymore, because like their god, their goddess was not there when she was, asking. And like T'Challa was like the avatar basically of that goddess, who is the cousin of Moon Knight's god, by the way.
Yes.
Or a sibling, I believe. So it's like she's like, I'm gonna do this on my own. Like, I don't need anybody. And like you see this in real life, like people lose something or someone and they get angry and bitter. Whereas Ramonda, like, she hunkers down, like, and projects strength physically too. Holy cow, did Angela Bassett, like, physically, like, she looked incredible.
She killed it. She killed her role. She killed her role as Ramonda, and as a result, in the film, Okoye essentially asked Ramonda, "Hey, can I?" Shuri's really in her head. Can I take her out on the field? Let's go get this scientist and we can at least keep her safe. Because from Wakanda's perspective, they don't trust Namor. They don't even know this man. They don't trust any person who would sneak in uninvited. You know what I mean? So they're like, look, we don't know what he's about, but we at least know what he wants and we can keep that safe. So at least both parties can be appeased. And so and this is the part of the movie, Josh, I have to be honest with you, could have done without.
Really?
We are introduced to Ironheart. Ironheart is the, I guess you can say, spiritual successor of Iron Man. She is a super genius who, for all intents and purposes, I think is more intelligent than Tony Stark ever was. Tony 100%. Stark, 100% is intelligent, but benefited a lot from money, resources and money, right? Where she is just raw, just intelligence. And so
she's just a kid from Chicago.
Just a kid from Chicago. She goes to MIT, and Okoye and Shuri, find her and they tell her, hey, some bad people are after you. And sure enough, the FBI comes upon them, and then the Namor squad, they also attack them, which I had some issues with, but whatever. And I did like the way
issues with the Namor squad.
I thought it was weird that they asked Wakanda to get the girl and then they attacked them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they attacked them. There was no reason for them to believe they weren't going to give the girl to them at this point in the movie.
Because clearly, like, Namor and his people, like, are good at spying on people.
Yes.
So like maybe they like found out, they're like, hey, this isn't going to go, like, let's let them get her and then we'll take her after that.
Okay, so then here is the second problem with that. There are only 3 people in the world outside of Namor who know they are looking for this girl. See what I'm trying to say? Well, Okoye, Shuri, and Ramonda are the only people in the world who know this. So what you're saying would insinuate that there is a spy, and that doesn't make any sense. The movie never sets that up within Wakanda. Sure. You know what I mean? So I just don't understand why. Look, it doesn't matter. It's a very small part of the movie. It just bugged me because I'm like, that doesn't make sense. There needs to be a catalyst for them to be distrustful, because also it wasn't just, I'm here to take the kid. It was, I'm going to kill you. And that made no sense. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's why I was like, okay. But regardless, there's a really cool fight scene with Okoye, and I don't know his name, but I know Atuma. Yeah, he is a I guess an important character going forward. I think he's Namor's right hand man. I think
It's debatable between him and Namora.
Okay.
They're both like pretty high up in there.
Pretty high up, yeah. A high ranking dude, and there's a really cool fight scene. And all the fight scenes in the movie were really, really good. So the fight scene was awesome. Okoye did her best, but these people, they're in their element. They are able to fight with water, and the Wakandans are just tremendously ill-equipped to fight that. And so they take Shuri and I can't remember the girl's name.
Riri.
What was it?
Riri.
Yeah, Riri. Yeah. They take them.
There was to rewind real quick. There was another issue I had with this scene.
Yeah.
Like you and I were talking about how she's kind of like the protege of Tony Stark, like the 2.0 version. She never
went to alma mater. Yeah.
Yeah. She never talks about him though. Like there's never this like, oh, like he inspired me, blah, blah, blah.
There was no time. Where would it have been the time? My issue with this whole part of the movie was you could remove her. Wouldn't change the conflict. Yeah. Wouldn't change any of the major plot points that we'll get into here. But like, I just didn't really, I felt like it added 45 minutes and it was clearly something inserted by Disney to fit I'll get into my theory as to why later, but this is clearly inserted by Disney to sell the machine. Disney has to stop. They have to just let directors direct the movie that they want to make. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to stop we got to stop this action of selling me a movie that I'm not watching or selling me a TV show that I'm not actively watching. Like, like
those little breadcrumbs to the next thing. Yeah,
we don't need that anymore. If you're going to do it creatively, right? Subtly, okay? Subtext, okay? Do it with some tact to insert these plot points, these breadcrumbs, so that when we get the whole sandwich, it tastes better, right? You're giving me, I came to get some pasta and you gave me chicken marsala as well. I'm super full and you expect me to come back again? Like I'm full. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. So I didn't really like the second act of this movie. Okay. I thought it dragged. And then when we got to the end, and you can admit this too, that like nothing that happened in the second act had really any significance on the rest of the movie. It was just a vehicle to drive two things. One, Shuri and Namor's relationship. Okay. And two, Riri's existence in the MCU, which you could have done without the latter. That's all I'm saying. You could have done without the latter.
No, you're right. And like, I guess when we're like giving, I have more thoughts about Riri's, like how she was handled in the film, but I think we can probably save that for towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end.
As far as like Namor and Shuri, like their like relationship, their meeting, their exchanges like are very vital to the film.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree. Like it could have been done a little bit differently.
Yeah.
You could have just like kidnapped her off the bat and be like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to protect." Like I've seen your country, you've seen mine. We have a mutual understanding. Let's take care of business.
I agree, and I feel like that would have been a better plot point. I felt like this part of the movie was I guess the second part of the second act was at least interesting because we got to understand a lot of the city of Namor. I can't remember the name.
Talokan. That was like one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
Yeah, it was great. Talokan. Yeah, that was great. And just learning and we got a big
his like character origin
breadcrumb. Yeah, he calls himself a mutant.
Yeah,
he calls himself a mutant. He basically explains that his people were of the Aztec origin in that region that we now know as Mexico, and when their people were dying, and they took their version of the heart-shaped herb. I think that he said the name. I don't remember what he called it. But their god, whatever, has a herb as well, but it made them so they can only breathe underwater. So they created this whole life underwater. But because his mother was already human before she took the herb, he became this hybrid, this mutant, the first mutant that we know of, you know what I mean? Where he's able to breathe of land and water. And so the people look to him because he, when his mother passed away, she's like, I just want to be buried where my people are. and this is, I'm assuming, a couple hundred years later. At this point, because Namor, as we find out, is eternal for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know if he doesn't age or if
I don't know if he doesn't age. Yeah, I don't really get why, but he's old. And so a couple hundred years later, I guess he ages slowly because he was a baby. So
True.
He just ages really slow.
As a boy, he returns to the surface for the first time.
Yeah, and sees that his people have been colonized by the Spanish. Yeah. And so he sets fire and literally destroys them. And that fuels his hatred for the overworld. He sees, the colonization, which, again, common theme here between the catalyst for why these two countries essentially secluded themselves. But he sees the colonization, the danger of, quote unquote, the white man. And so he says, all right, well, we're going to stay underwater. And so
that's where he gets his name from, too.
That's where he gets his name from, because Namor means without love, I think, in Spanish, or translates loosely.
I forgot what the word is, but when you combine two words to create a new one, because without, it'd be seen amor, and so he takes the N from seen to namor. Mean without love, because his people call him
love, I think, something like that. Yeah,
they call him a Kulkulkan, which is the feathered serpent god, and like that. Yeah. I have a lot to say about that, because this is like one of the first times like we've seen a good depiction of Mesoamerican mythology and culture.
Yeah.
And like, I have to give credit to Coogler and the production team and everyone involved, that they really did hard work to make this feel good, like make it feel real.
Yeah.
The actor who plays Namor, Tenoch Huerta, he looks more indigenous than what you typically see. There's a lot of discrimination in Latin America against indigenous looking people.
Correct.
I mean, like, where my dad's from, Guatemala, like, they were massacred, trained by the CIA, and then the military massacred indigenous people. So to like see indigenous people like in seats of power, like, and being their own thing, it was like crazy. Tenoch actually, he wrote a book about this subject that I would love to check out. And the actor who played Atuma, or no, sorry, this is a Tenoch quote. He said how they taught us to be ashamed of who we are, but it's time to cut the shame off and say, yeah, this is who I am. I never had anything wrong with me. The mistake was in the eyes that were looking at us, that were judging us. Most of the time, it was ourselves. It's time to change the glasses and now reconcile who we are with our ancestors, with our old grandparents, and embrace them. Yeah. And like, to me, that connects, because
that's a lot what this movie was about.
I've heard that, and Kate and I talked about this, of like, for me, like being like half Latino, like I've heard from both sides, like, you don't belong to this group, you don't belong to that group. And like, especially like for like, if being like indigenous looking Latino, like you hear it, like, I hate to, like, from white people being like, oh, like dirty Mexicans stealing their jobs. I've heard that. But you also will hear it from like the more European looking Latinos who are like, oh, like you're less than I am because you're dark.
That was part of the press run of this movie, that there were people saying, well, he doesn't represent us as Mexicans. And a lot of Mexicans were like, absolutely, that is crazy. Like, just because he's not fair skinned, that doesn't make him any less Mexican. Right. So I think my wife said she loved their depiction. She thought it was, although she did have one problem, but we'll talk about that in the third act. But other than that, she loved their depiction. I thought that scene was beautiful. I thought their city is beautiful. It was awesome.
My favorite part of that. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay. Was it the game they play? Well, the ball? That was cool.
That was cool.
Because that's a real Aztec game. I think that's still played today. I can't remember what it's called though.
It is, but they just call it ball. But I forgot in Naruto, I don't know how to say it. But nobody actually knows what the rules were. Like, there's speculation. And actually, on the bridge scene in Boston, there was a little nod to it as well when they threw one of the water bombs and Atumna hip checks it.
Oh, that's like the game. I caught that. Yeah,
I Wendy was with me. I was like, oh, yo, he just did the thing. And then to actually see them playing it was cool.
Actually play, that was awesome.
Thing was like, there's an artificial sun down there.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And it's beautiful. And Namor, like you can tell, like, he's so proud of it. He goes, I brought the sun to my people.
Like,
he really is a god.
And for those who may not know, the sun is very prolific in ancient Aztec mythology. It is literally seen from a lot of those Aztec
and
colonies. Mayan colonies, it is literally like they look at it not only as they look at it as the source, if that makes any sense. So what he's trying to explain is that because they were underwater, as you know, it's dark, and so that's why these people revere him so much as a god. You know what I mean? So I thought that scene was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it fits into the mythos of like the Mesoamerican, the Mayan religion of like the ancient times. Talocan is based off of Tlacocan from the Aztec mythos, and it's a part of the underworld. So the fact that Talocan is underwater, like cool. In the ancient religion, it's part of the underworld, reserved for people who were killed by like drowning or lightning. And the god Talak. He's also the caretaker of people who have like physical disabilities. And so the fact that he has pointed ears, he has like the winged feet, like I thought like they really were like playing into like the mythos, like the real world mythos of this. And then also like as we'll get to that later, but they use Yucatec Mayan, which there's like 69 versions of it, but they use Yucatec Mayan in the film. And they actually created something that comes up a little bit later that I thought was super cool.
Right. Well, and I think we see the full extent of their, I guess you can say, what their culture, their powers are, because after Namor shows Shuri all this stuff, Ramona has essentially contracted Nakia, who I love this part, by the way. She's been chilling in Haiti for 7 years. I was like, yo, what's up? We're here. We made it. We're Haitians. We made it to the MCU. I was like, what's up? They were speaking in Creole. I was like, yo, I know what they're saying. So, that was really cool. And she's been in Haiti this whole time. And she, just to, not to go off on a tangent, because I know we're short on time, but, if you don't know, Haiti is a Latin American country. Haitians may not want to admit that, but just because we're Black does not mean we're not considered. It is a Latin country. So it's very on brand, on theme for this movie. And so the Ramona asked Nakia, like, hey, I need your help. She's the best spy in the world. So she goes and she hunts down, in this indigenous area and finds where they believe Namor is. And Namor at the same time is making a threat to Ramonda saying like, hey, if your people ever set foot in our land, like it's war, it's on site. And at that same time, the motion was already put into play. Nakia has to kill a guard in order to save Shuri and Riri. And that's what starts this mini war where to get revenge, Namor essentially sends like a small percentage of the fleet to Wakanda and absolutely wrecks Wakanda. I thought the way they introduced it was interesting too, because Nakia, we find out, I guess I did forget to mention that Okoye does get stripped of her rank as general for losing Shuri. By the way.
She messed up.
And that was probably one of the best scenes in the movie when Ramona is dressing down Okoye, because you see things from her perspective that she has given her entire family, her entire life. And when Killmonger came through, Okoye did nothing to stop him. And you can see that she's mad resentful of Okoye. And from Okoye's perspective, she doesn't really have a leg to stand on, right? So Okoye is now reconciling with the fact that she's now a civilian and she's talking to Nakia. And, Nakia, I thought she was going to, it seemed like she was going to tell Okoye that what we find out later at the end of the movie, but she was about to say something, but before it happened, the attack happens. And let me tell you, y'all, Namor came through. He came in heavy. He knew exactly what he was going to do. They were defenseless. It was systematic, right? They attacked from the waters, and Wakanda has never had to fight anyone from the water, so they had no defenses for it. He practically nearly flooded Wakanda, and in the attack ends up killing Ramona in the attack, and this now sets Shuri off because she is just enraged, losing her mother, her father, and now her her brother all in the span of a few years, it's a lot on her. She feels alone. You know what I mean? And so it, through her anger and her rage, it pushes her to use science. You know, Namor gave her a wristband from the flower that their people took as a sign of goodwill. And she uses that wristband to essentially recreate the purple heart, the heart-shaped herb, whatever it's called. Yeah, or whatever it's called. She recreates it and digitally recreates the Black Panther powers. So she, in her mind, I think part of her, you see, there's hope that when she reaches the ascendant plane, she'll see T'Challa. Yeah, she'll see T'Challa specifically. And this was probably the best scene in the whole movie. She enters. Yeah, she enters the ascendant plane. She hops out. She's in the throne room. She's like, "Where am I?" And none other than Killmonger is there. And she's like, "What? How?" And he's like, "What do you mean how? You already know how. This is in your mind." And she's like, "I don't understand." And he's like, "Look, you don't even believe in this. You took the herb because you just wanted to be strong. That's the same reason why I took it." He's like, "You don't care about Bosk, the ascendant plane. You don't care about any of this. You just want revenge." And she has to deal with it. She has to wrestle with that reality that is part of who she is. And I thought it was a great scene. Yeah. I mean,
in the fact that, like, she sees, it goes back to what we talked at the beginning. She's angry. She does not grieve properly. And that's a very dangerous thing to do as a leader.
That's how villains are born.
It is. And like, she like is getting closer and closer and closer to being like the next Killmonger, like 2.0.
Yeah.
And like, you know, to scale back real quick, like, we're all leaders in life at one point or another, whether it's in a business, in your family, the military, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and to be in that any kind of leadership position and not have coped with what's going on in your life, not have mourned, grieved, or whatever, like, it's dangerous when you let your emotions override you like that. Like, there are real consequences that are going to affect other people.
Emotional leaders are dangerous leaders.
The most dangerous, and you know, they will cause the most damage.
Yes.
And that's what Shuri has done. Like, she, and even Ramonda was let her emotions get the better of her, started this war. And now Shuri is, you know, she's going all for it. Like, she, even her armor, it looks like Killmonger's more than like T'Challa's.
More than T'Challa's.
She is taking up Killmonger's mantle of, I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to get what's mine. Get out of my way.
So out of anger, her and Riri basically surmise that Namor must be able to breathe water, the water vapors in the air. So if they dry out his skin, he'll essentially be super weak. So they have this. This is where the third act comes, and of course, Marvel got a Marvel
CGI.
CGI battle. We do see some cool fights, but essentially, their plan is to march into the middle of the GD Ocean with a giant ship, trick Namor into this chamber that dehydrates him, and you know, it's really nothing to write home about this whole fight scene. But you know, what was interesting is that the plan works. They are able to trap Namor, and the plan is to fly to the nearest desert to essentially make sure he can't absorb any water. When they crash in the desert, they fight, they duke it out, and Namor actually ends up getting the upper hand of Shuri and stabs her.
It's brutal, dude. He like destroys her,
spears her, which, you know, it makes sense. I mean, she's not combat. She's not combat ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was born for this.
This fight is all led out of pure adrenaline and rage. So there was really no plan outside of this. So he spears her, and as she's dying, she finally has that moment where she sees her mom, and her mom reminds her, she's like, "Look, you're more than this." And she, you know, through again adrenaline and also a weird moment, she pulls herself out of the spear. No blood. Really weird, but okay.
I get you want kids to watch this, but whatever.
No blood, but okay, whatever. So she then, you know, essentially stops Namor from reaching the water, has a moment that she's able to kill, but then she remembers Killmonger, and she realizes that that's not who she wants to be, at least not in its entirety.
Yeah.
And so she offers a truce, and he accepts the truce because Same thing for him. He realizes that he could do more for his people alive than dead. So they offer a truce. And that's really where, the plot of the movie leads itself. There is this truce born out of the need to keep vibranium safe from the U.S. Really, we do find in the movie that there is a minor plot that Valerie, what's her name? Valerie, I can't remember her last name
or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So whatever Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character is playing, she has already set a plan in motion to somehow attack Wakanda, because earlier in this movie, and I think we forgot to bring this up, the U.S. was ready to actually assassinate Ramona. So they already have
they're ready to take quote unquote military action.
Military action, to get the vibranium, because they are frustrated that it won't be shared with them, which that is a typical U.S. thing to do.
Yes,
so, 100%. We can already see where this third movie or this next movie may be headed. And then at the end of the movie, we get we do see some things near the end, right? We did see Ironheart in her Ironheart armor, which I thought was cool. I
actually didn't like the design that much. In the comics, it looks way better.
I don't like the design, but I like the functionality. She's got a straight up rail gun on the arm, like Mega Man. It's really cool. The armor design I could care less for, but I don't even think that's going to be the final one either. I think it's definitely a prototype, right?
So the Wakandans are like, you can't take that.
Yeah, you can't take this, which makes
she's
sense.
Cool with it. Yeah, makes sense.
You don't want to give a 19-year-old essentially a nuke. Like, that's not.
Right, because it was made in Wakanda. Yeah. It wasn't made in the US.
So they don't give her the suit, but we also have a very touching moment, and this is where I cried again, where Shuri is trying to reconcile, right? I don't think she's completely over it or completely healed, but she decides to have the ceremony to start the process to heal. And she finally has this moment where she remembers T'Challa, and she sees what her mother was saying, where it's like, he may not be here, but his presence, you can feel it. And it was just a very touching ending to a very thoughtful movie. You know what I mean? And then we got, a really cool part actually, if you stayed for the end credits, do you want to say what we see at the end credits?
You're talking about when Nakia shows up?
Yeah.
That was that was interesting. She shows up with one of the orphans that Ramonda actually met earlier in the film.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Hey, this is my son."
Yeah.
And to her son, she goes, "Hey, this is your aunt."
Yeah.
It's T'Challa's hidden son.
T'Challa Jr. I was like, yo, that's crazy.
Well, and I want you to share this. Like, what's his Haitian name?
Oh, his Haitian name is Toussaint. So if you don't know, Toussaint, Haiti is the first Black country to win its independence from its colonized country. And Toussaint was the leader of that revolution. This man was a straight up goon. Okay. Like, to single-handedly dismantle France, it back then was literally unheard of. It's like the David and Goliath relationship. So it was that's his name. His Haitian name is Toussaint, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. And like, just a quick historical note, like that whole thing would have ended so differently if the other world powers would have helped out Toussaint.
Yeah.
I digress.
Yeah, no, very, 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 very differently. I mean, overall, my thoughts on the movie, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a very, very touching homage to Chadwick Boseman. And I think you can see that in all the actors. They brought their A game, all of them. They all brought their A game. There was no lazy performances here. Okay. It was a very thoughtful movie, very heartfelt movie. The parts like I mentioned before, I didn't love Ironheart's introduction into the MCU. I do think that this is being fueled because I realize that, we've been introduced to a young version of Ironheart, a young version of Miss Marvel, a young version of Black Panther, a young version of America Chavez, a young, what's Hawkeye's apprentice's name? Kate Bishop. We are introduced to a lot of young characters. So we are either getting,
one might say.
So we are either getting a Young Avengers movie sometime in the near future, or we are getting a time jump. One of the two things is happening. I don't know which one, but I'm like, there's very obviously a theme for why this was kind of ham-fisted in the movie. Oh, and I forgot Thor's daughter too. So that's another a lot of young characters. Now, I don't think we're gonna get a young Avengers as we envision it, but we'll see. The point is, it's in here for a reason, and I appreciate the reason. I just didn't really like the means that they went about it, but hey, it is what it is. It's a Marvel movie. I liked it. I liked the movie a lot. What about you?
Yeah, I loved this movie, actually. It's probably one of my favorite Marvel movies, to be honest.
Yeah.
The emotional depth of it goes beyond what most Marvel movies do. Again, like I always rant about the Marvel formula of the like punch joke, serious moment joke. This kind of breaks that up a little bit. Other thing I really liked was that like most of the like quote unquote heroes like weren't very heroic.
Yeah.
In a lot of this movie. Like Shuri and Ramonda are dealing with their grief in pretty selfish ways. Ramonda, like you can sympathize a little bit because like she's just trying to protect her people, but then she starts a war, and then Shuri just goes off the deep end.
Yeah.
Nakia ran off to Haiti, like, and didn't even come to T'Challa's funeral, which, you know, there are reasons given, but still, like she runs from that grief. And then Namor, he's an absolutist, but you can sympathize with him, and the whole time, like he is just trying to protect his children, more or less, from this world that feels like a threat. The editing, I really didn't like. Actually, it really took me out of the movie. It felt very jarring, and it kind of weakened certain scenes for me. Another thing I didn't really like was Riri's inclusion, and I feel like lately they did this with America Chavez, where you have this young woman. In this case, it was a young black woman with America Chavez. It was a young Latina.
Yeah.
And they feel like a plot device. Like, I don't feel like there's a lot of character development. They don't feel like they do a whole lot to contribute. It feels like they're pushed around here and there. And it just doesn't work for me. But something else I absolutely loved was the whole thing with Talokan, and with how they incorporated this Mesoamerican mythology into the film. And for me, like, I have the receipts. I have the ancestry test. Like, I have ancestry in Guatemala, like from Mayans and from the Yucatec Peninsula. It's like those are legit, like my people, like my ancient ancestors.
Yeah.
And even the war cry, Liki Talokan, like the cast made that up for this film.
Yeah.
So it's just really cool how they played tribute to that. The soundtrack's pretty cool. Not as good as without Kendrick being on it. But there's a whole song that's in Yucatec Mayan, so that's cool. And overall, like Coogler and the team, they created a world that lets other cultures shine, just like in the first Black Panther. And I think it's really cool that you and I are talking about this. Like, you're Haitian, a Haitian American, like, and my dad's Guatemalan. So like we have like our ancestors are tied to this film. Yeah. And like, there's a lot of like connections between Black and Latino people that, you know, there's a lot of contention as well. And so like, this is like a cool, like bringing that together. And I tweeted recently, Propaganda hip hop artist. He wrote a song that kind of relates to this theme of like, we're really the same. And I feel like this film kind of shows that. Kind
of shows. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, man.
So,
well, yeah, guys, if you haven't watched Black Panther, you know, watch it. If you did watch it, let us know if you agree. Josh, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, like, rate, review, comment, subscribe, all that goodness. We'll catch you in the next one. Liki Talokan.
The Bandwagon Fan Podcast is hosted by Josh Jimenez, Alex Magosa, and me, AJ Soy. Our show is produced by Kate Smith and edited by your boy, AJ. Our social media is managed by Natalia Kokulia, and our theme song, Lush Waves, is provided to us by Taylor Lewin of _audio. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.